If your business lives in your head, it cannot scale. And the worst part, you built it that way. Not on purpose, but you did. And today we're going to fix it. Hey, 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 you're listening to She's That Founder, the podcast for ambitious female leaders who are ready to stop being the bottleneck in their business by using AI frameworks for faster delegation and decision making. I'm Dawn Andrews, and today you'll discover how to capture everything that's currently locked in your brain using a voice to SOP workflow that takes maybe 20 minutes. You're going to run a diagnostic I call the 30-day absence test, which is going to show you exactly where your business is still founder dependent. And you're going to understand what I mean when I say AI has structural leverage, because there's a huge difference between using AI to save time and using AI to actually free yourself. 3 things, real frameworks, all of it actionable today. Okay, real quick. We're recording this in March, which is Women's History Month. And I want to name something before we dive in because it actually sets up everything that we're talking about today. The women we celebrate this month, the pioneers, the rule breakers, the ones who built institutions and movements and industries before anyone gave them permission, they all had one thing in common. They did not wait for a system to exist. They became the system. They were the knowledge, the standards, the judgment, the vision, all of it running in one body, living inside one mind. And when they stepped back or stepped away, things got fragile. And this pattern is still happening right now, possibly in your business. So this Women's History Month, we're talking about the work that doesn't make the highlight reel, the unsexy, essential work of documentation, of taking what lives in your head and building it into something that outlasts your daily involvement. The most powerful thing you can do for the women who come after you on your team, in your industry, in your community, is to build something that doesn't need you in every room to run. Okay, let's get into it. I want you to think about the last time you took a full day off. Not a conference, not a working from the beach situation where you're answering Slack between delicious margaritas, but a full day off where the business ran and ran well without you touching it and without you coming back to an avalanche of crap to deal with. Can you remember one? Here's what I see over and over again at that 500K to 5 million in revenue mark. The business is working, revenue is coming in, the team is growing, and somehow the business got heavier, not lighter for the founder. If that's you, you might have more people to manage, more decisions to make, more, can I just ask you something, interruptions every day than you had when you were running the whole thing alone. The complexity scaled, but your role didn't shift. And the business didn't get complicated because of the revenue. It got complicated because it was never designed to run without you. Though that's usually the label that we slap on it, and we think that that's the challenge. It's a documentation problem. And everybody hates SOPs, myself included, but this is the way out, y'all. Because your business runs on your judgment, your decisions, your context, your taste, your standards, and none of that is written down anywhere because you've never had to write it down because you were always there. So stay with me because this is where I think this gets really interesting. Because the solution isn't necessarily what you think it is. It's not just about the SOPs, but let's get into it anyway. First, let's talk about documentation. When most founders hear that word, they feel like it's corporate nonsense, or they immediately picture sitting down on a Sunday afternoon to write a tech manual or the paper manuals that are still coming with your computers or that you look at in a QR code. It's like a terms and conditions document, but for your entire brain. And who wants to do that? Nobody ever wants to do that because that sounds terrible. And it also sounds impossible. That version of documentation is dead. We are not doing that. So hopefully that is freeing you up already in lightness of heart and spirit. Here's what we're doing instead. I'm giving you now the voice to SOP workflow. Let me paint the picture for you. You already know how to do everything in your business. And the problem isn't the knowledge, it's capturing it. You just haven't given that knowledge anywhere to live except inside you and your brain. Here's the workflow. The next time you do something you've done 100 times, a client onboarding conversation, a proposal review, how you handle a new business inquiry, how you prep for a weekly team meeting, you're going to narrate it out loud while you do it. And even better, just do it and record it. That's it. That's step 1. You're already doing the work. You're just using an AI tool like Otter or Fathom or something else, Fireflies, to record it while you're doing it. You can do it on a voice memo on your phone or a Loom recording on your computer if it requires sharing computer screens. It doesn't matter. Just do the thing. And if it requires narration, talk while you work, or just have the conversation so that people can hear what it sounds like. Here's a version of what that might look like. When a new client inquiry comes in, the first thing I do is check whether they've filled out our intake form. If they haven't, I don't schedule anything yet. I send this response. And then I just keep going out loud, like I'm explaining it to somebody who just started in the business. So you've got your recording. The next step is to drop that transcript into AI, Claude, ChatGPT, whatever your jam, and give it this prompt. Here's a voice transcript of me walking through a process. Please extract the steps in order, identify any decision points, and format this as a standard operating procedure. That's it, 2 steps. What comes out the other side is your workable SOP. Does it need a little cleanup? Yes, 100%. But you're not writing it from scratch. You're reviewing something that already exists because you put it there. So here's the reframe I want you to hold on to. You've been the manual for your company this whole time, and we're just finally printing it. Does that sound familiar? I mean, does that feel accurate for you? Because I hear founders say, I don't have time to document. And what I hear underneath is, I don't have time to write from scratch. But you're not writing it from scratch anymore. You're capturing what you're already doing. AI is your documentation partner, not a note taker. It's a structural partner, and there's a difference there. Here's the thing. You're building the frameworks, you're doing the work, but if you've been stuck in documentation debt for more than 1 quarter, if your team still can't move without you, even though you've been trying to fix that, it's a structural problem. And structural problems don't fix themselves. CEO Clarity Consulting is where we rebuild your decision architecture, your delegation infrastructure, and your ownership model with you, not for you. And every quarter you wait, that gap gets more expensive. So book your CEO Clarity call now. The link is in the show notes. Okay, back to it. Now you have an SOP to work with. Here's where I want you to get honest with yourself. And I call this the 30-day absence test. And I want you to run it, not hypothetically, but actually run it with AI this week. And the question is simple. If you disappeared for 30 days, no Slack, no email, no communication whatsoever in your business, what would break? Not what would be annoying, not what would people have to figure out, what would actually break? And what would pile up so that when you returned, you would have a look of absolute horror on your face? So here's how to do the audit. Open up a document or a chat with AI and list every decision you made in the last 2 weeks, every approval. And this part it's hard to do this, you guys. I know that it is because I've gone through it. I test everything that I share with you guys. It's hard to list every decision that you made in the last 2 weeks. Even just looking at your calendar, there are micro decisions all along the entire week, right? Just do your best. Think about every decision, every approval, every let me take a look at that. Every time someone came to you for an answer that honestly they shouldn't have needed you for, and sort these decisions out. Who made each decision, or rather who could have made each decision if they had the right information. And the ones that still required you, flag those. That flag list is your documentation priority stack. That's where you start. Not with some master SOP library plan, just that list. Because I want you guys to go straight to the thing that's going to change your life. Not just, I don't know, be a pretend business person and try to do things like you think corporate would do it. Okay, so back to this list. What it's going to show you is not that your team can't do these things. It's that they don't have your context. They don't know how you're thinking about it. They don't know what factors you're weighing or what a good outcome looks like to you. And that's not their failure. It's founder dependency. And I want you to hear this really clearly. This is the fork in the road for your revenue level. If you're in this stage of the business, this is the before and after moment. Because in that 500K to 5 million revenue zone, you're just on the cusp of being able to outrun the complexity of your business. You can still hustle through it, and a lot of founders do, but then they plateau really hard. So you can keep doing it that way, or you can redesign your role and stop being the answer key and start being the architect. You build a system that holds the standards so you don't have to hold them personally every single time. And that shift, that's what I mean when I say going from founder to CEO. That's what it actually looks like. It's not the title, it's the thinking and the operating model. Ready for your last chunk? This one's the big picture. Here's the thing I want to drive home before we wrap up, because I think it's the piece that permanently changes how you use AI. There are two ways to use it. There's tactical AI and there's structural AI. Tactical AI saves you minutes that add up to hours, that add up to weeks and months, and it's fabulous. You use it to write quick emails, you summarize documents, brainstorm subject lines. Useful. Absolutely. But it doesn't change your business model. Structural AI saves your business. When you use AI to build the scaffolding, process libraries, decision trees, onboarding documentation, automations, here's how we think about this reference materials, you're not just saving time, you're building infrastructure. This is the teach a person to fish situation. Not giving them the fish, the teaching them to fish. You're creating that thing that lets the next person who joins your team operate at your standard at a higher level without you explaining it from scratch every single time. And here's the shift I'm inviting you to make. You're not delegating work, you're delegating context. And AI helps you package that context at scale. So think about that. Every framework in your head, how you evaluate new clients, how you handle team conflicts, how you decide whether to take on projects, how you want your proposals to feel and be delivered, all of it is packageable. All of it can be turned into something your team can reference, work from, and grow inside of. You have spent years building that context and that content. It has your judgment, your taste. It has enormous value. But right now, if it's only living in one place and that one place is you, then every time someone needs it, they come find you. So when you use AI to help you capture and structure that context, you're not just building better SOPs. You're building a business that is no longer dependent on your physical presence in every decision. And that's not efficiency, that's leverage. And leverage is how you scale. Okay, this is the part that ties everything together. The voice to SOP workflow captures what's in your head. The 30-day absence test shows you where the gaps are. And using AI as structural leverage is how you fill them systematically. Not in one exhausting weekend, but process by process, week by week, until one day you realize the business is running and you're not in every room. That is the goal, and that's what we're building toward. And just to give you some numbers around this, like you can push, not everybody can quite make it to 5 million on what you have before you do this. But what you can do after this, the sky is the limit. This is where you get to 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, if your business is built for those kinds of numbers. Here's the truth I want to leave you with before we hit that call to action, which we always do. Structural work is not a solo sport. The reason most founders stay stuck in this documentation debt, even when they have the tools, even when they know the frameworks, is because they're trying to reverse engineer their own thinking without a mirror. Without someone who could see the whole operation from the outside and identify the gaps that are invisible from the inside, and then help you build the architecture that actually holds. And that is what we do over here at Free Range Thinking in CEO Clarity Consulting. And if today's episode landed for you, if you heard yourself somewhere in this conversation, that is not a coincidence. That is your signal. Let's land this plane. Here's what we covered today. The voice to SOP workflow, so that you can narrate everything and build your first SOP in 20 minutes or less, not writing from scratch. We talked about the 30-day absence test. You can audit your decisions in the last 2 weeks, identify what still required you, and that flag list becomes your documentation priority stack, not a project, a starting point. And then the big distinction, structural AI versus tactical AI. One saves you minutes, the other saves your business. Because when your context lives in a system instead of only in yourself, the business stops being founder dependent. And that is leverage. And leverage is how you scale. So here's your action for this week. Just one. Pick one process you do on repeat, something you've done 100 times, set a voice memo going before you start, and just narrate. Then take that transcript and give it to your AI with the prompt I gave you and see what comes out. That's your first SOP, and it probably takes you 20 minutes or less. One process this week, that's it. You know, we started this episode talking about Women's History Month, about the founders and pioneers who built things before there was a roadmap, who were the system, the knowledge and judgment and standards all held in one person. You're one of those people. You have been from the beginning. But here's what they didn't always get to do and what you do get to do. And that's build something that outlasts your constant presence, something that carries your wisdom forward without requiring your body in every room. And that is not a small thing. That's legacy infrastructure, and it starts with one voice memo, one transcript, one SOP. So, Lovey, please start documenting. Your future team will thank you, And honestly, so will future you. Delegation without documentation is just hoping, and hope is not a business strategy. So I will leave you with that, and I'll catch you on the next one.